Okay, we will come to order. Welcome to the May 18th, 2021 meeting of the Salem Planning Commission. Shelby, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Augustine.
Here.
Commissioner Griggs.
Here.
Commissioner Heller.
Here.
Commissioner Kopcho is absent, excused. Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner McKinley.
Here.
Commissioner Pollock.
Here.
Commissioner Schweikart is absent, excused. Commissioner Slater.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you, Shelby. We don't have anybody signed up at this point for public comment, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. I asked Commissioner Pollock to step in since Commissioner Kopcho was excused. So Commissioner Pollock, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move to adopt the minutes of May 4th, 2021 as presented to us.
Do I have a second?
Second by Levin.
Thank you. That helps when you say your name because I cannot find everybody's face. So we have a motion on the floor seconded by Levin. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Using your raise your hand, I don't see a raised hand. So Shelby, would you please call the roll and signify by saying aye if you're in favor of the motion, nay if you're not.
Commissioner Augustine.
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye.
Commissioner Heller.
Aye.
Commissioner Levin.
Aye.
Commissioner McKinley.
Aye.
Commissioner Pollock.
Aye.
Commissioner Slater.
Aye.
And Commissioners Kopcho and Schweikart are absent.
Thank you, Shelby. So we'll move on to the public hearings. I'll open a hearing on case CPC ZC 21-01 for the 681 Reese Hill Road Southeast. Are there any statements of ex parte contacts or potential or actual conflicts of interest that anybody would like to make for the record? I'm not seeing any. So Shelby, would you please read the statement of criteria?
This is a public hearing to consider a comprehensive plan change zone change case number CPC ZC 21-01 for a property located at 681 Reese Hill Road Southeast. The criteria applicable to this application are found in Salem Revised Code, SRC Chapter 64.025 E2 for comprehensive plan map amendments and 265.005 E1 for quasi-judicial zone changes. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Planning Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Planning Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Thank you, Shelby. Ms. Cole, you're up. Are you ready?
First, before we get started, I have to make a correction. Those are not the correct criteria. Shelby, the ones that are applicable to tonight's case are from the annexation chapter 260.045B.
Thank you, Pamela. Sorry about that.
I think we're ready for you, Ms. Cole.
All right. Is that visible to you now?
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Pamela Cole, and I'm the case manager for this proposed annexation and concurrent comprehensive plan change and zone change. I request that the staff report and supplemental staff report, their attachments, and the presentation be entered into the record, as well as some testimony that we received at 5:15 p.m. from Department of Land Conservation and Development. The subject property at 681 Reese Hill Road Southeast is proposed for annexation, and that's under annexation case C739, which will be going to council in the near future. Territory annexed into the city is automatically given the comprehensive plan designation and zoning designation that are equivalent to applicable county zoning designations. And this is according to table 260-1 in the annexation chapter, unless several factors would apply. And in this case, the petitioner is requesting a new comprehensive plan designation or zone designation other than what the table 260-1 would allow. So the request is to change from developing residential in the comprehensive plan and urban transition 10-acre zoning in Marion County to parks, open space, and outdoor recreation in the comprehensive plan and public amusement zoning. And with tonight's action, Planning Commission would review the application and staff's presentation and the record and determine what recommendation to make to council. The approximate boundary of the area that would be subject to the comprehensive plan change and zone change is shown here in a heavy black outline. It's not the entire territory. So there is a proposed extension of Lone Oak Road Southeast, and the preliminary alignment is shown here with a kind of orange-yellow dashed line. It would be extending down from approximate location at Sahaley Drive Southeast, through several other properties and through this property at 681 Reese Hill Road. The alignment in the transportation systems plan is preliminary, and based on recent information, the alignment is more likely to be a little further to the east within this property, and the proposed zone boundary would be aligned with the northern part of the center line of the right-of-way, and then the southern area would just correspond to an existing property boundary. So on this vicinity map, the red dashed line is the current city limits line, which is adjoining the northern boundary of the subject property. The urban growth boundary is in a gray line, and that's along Reese Hill Road southeast and over to the west and east. And again, Reese Hill Road with an orange line, that's a collector as well, and Lone Oak Road Extension would be a collector. Devon Avenue Southeast on the east side is a local street. The property subject to the comp plan and zone change currently contains a single-family dwelling and accessory buildings. It's now a city-owned property, and it's anticipated it would be a future park. The adjacent properties are occupied by single-family dwellings and, especially to the south, agricultural uses. The parcel immediately to the north is 6719 Devon. That was annexed in 2018, and it's been tentatively approved for a subdivision in case number 2101. There are other large parcels north of 6719 Devon and south of Sahaley Drive that we expect will also be subdivided in the future. Just to the north on Sahaley and northward and west, that's Creekside Planned Unit Development. The subject property is currently designated developing residential, and the applicant's proposing parks, open space, and outdoor recreation. The surrounding properties in the urban growth boundary are all zoned, designated developing residential. This property is currently zoned Marion County UT 10, Urban Transition 10, as well as properties to the west and to the east. Property to the south is outside urban growth boundary, and that's Marion County Special Agriculture. In the city, the nearby areas are either zoned RS, single family residential, or RA, residential agriculture. This closer view shows the property. You can see the dwelling and accessory structures and buildings on nearby properties. The applicant attended a South Gateway Neighborhood Association meeting in November 2020 in lieu of an open house. That was a virtual meeting, and Cigna has not submitted comments for the current case. We've received one citizen comment in support of the park. We received comment from 2 citizens who live nearby the proposed changes, and they're in opposition because they're concerned that traffic and pedestrian safety issues haven't been addressed with this proposal, and there was no proposal to widen Reese Hill and Devon, and they were also concerned that this would be redundant because there are other parks nearby. They were also concerned, and I didn't know this on the slide, that some of the uses that would be allowed under the public amusement zone would be too intense, such as recreational amusement parks. So when we're looking at the PA zone, it permits a variety of uses, and this would be a public park. So PA zone permits parks and open space, some recreational and cultural community services that are a little more intense than would be allowed in residential agriculture or single family residential zones in a park. And that would be something such as a ball field that's up to 300 spectators. And also, if perchance there would be some uses that would accommodate 300 or more people, those could also be accommodated under the PA zoning. We haven't determined at the city the actual uses that would be involved in the park. That's going to be identified through a future master plan process, and any street improvements related to the development would be determined through site plan review process later. Right now, we're only looking at, are these designations appropriate for the property when it's annexed? Another citizen commented, and we included this one in the supplemental staff report. And the citizen was concerned that taking the property out of the RA or RS inventory would result in the city not contributing a fair share to the Lone Oak reimbursement district that was set up in order to obtain fees and funds to continue to build the Lone Oak extension. And they were particularly concerned because the city is requiring other developers to construct the extension through the city property. As we indicated in the supplemental staff report, the council report on the reimbursement district anticipated that about 50 to 75% of the bare land would actually be developed into lots and pay the fee. And even if this property is not developed for single family uses, the city would still be subject to fees of approximately $1,000 per vehicle trip. So the city would be paying a proportional share. We also received comments from Housing Land Advocates and Fair Housing Council of Oregon. They requested that Planning Commission defer adoption of the proposal until Goal 10 findings can be made, and we could evaluate the proposal under the housing needs analysis and buildable land inventory. And typically with an annexation that has a comprehensive plan change, we do provide very detailed findings when we get to the city council stage, but we understand the desire to have those findings. So we did prepare the supplemental staff report this afternoon with findings for Goal 10. And in summary, the housing needs analysis and buildable lands inventory show that we have a surplus of land that's designated for single family detached housing, and we're addressing the shortfall in multifamily land through the Our Salem process later this year. For staff, Public Works commented that the property is capable of being served with utilities through extensions of water, sewer, and storm, and also through street improvements. The specific requirements, including any possible requests and needs for additional right-of-way, will be addressed at the site plan review stage. The proposal is actually a downgrade of use for traffic purposes, and Public Works determined that it will not have significant effects on the transportation system. The fire department had no concerns with the proposal, and building and safety had no concerns. The criteria under 260.045B are here on the screen. Staff found that the area can be adequately served by extensions of water, sewer, and stormwater and future street improvements. So that addresses the criterion requiring that the designations provide for logical urbanization. We found that the public park facility would be compatible with the adjacent development and land use designations for criterion 2. For criterion 3, the proposal addresses the city's need for recreational facilities that come along with the development of new housing in this area. So the demographic patterns have changed. Where it's primarily rural now, it is becoming more developed under the city zoning. So the current designations are no longer appropriate, and a park is needed in this area. Finally, staff found the proposal benefits the public because it will allow a community park to be developed here to serve the expanding population. And this is consistent with the location and character of the property, adjacent land use designations, and transportation facilities. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend to Council that the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan map be changed from developing residential to parks, open space, and outdoor recreation upon annexation, and that the zone change requests from urban transition 10 acre to city public amusement be applied upon annexation. And this would be subject to a condition. The condition would be that the proposed boundary between the public amusement zone and residential agriculture zone in the subject property would be submitted to the planning administrator for review and approval, either within a year of the effective date of the annexation or at the time that public construction plans for the extension of Lone Oak Road are approved, whichever is later. That concludes my presentation. And I did want to mention as well that we received at 5:15 the document from DLCD requesting that the record be open so that they can review the findings on Goal 10.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. So do we have questions of staff? If you can raise your hand. Commissioner Pollock.
Good afternoon. Thank you for a really comprehensive report. I have a couple of questions. First, addressing what the citizen had said. Where is the nearest park from this one? Remember, they said that there are some parks near.
Yes, we'll actually have Tony Whitler from Parks that will be testifying as the applicant. So she is the more appropriate person to answer that question.
Okay, then
Any questions related to parks or park development, master planning, Tony is the authority.
that's the questions that I have. So I'll refrain my questions for her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollock. Do we have any other questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, no hands raised. Would the applicant like to come and testify? And please state your name and address for the record. And I believe it's Ms. Whitler, and you have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tony Whitler. I'm a parks planner with the city, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to you tonight and speak to the Reese Hill Road Park property annexation and comp plan zone change. We have our comprehensive park system master plan, which was updated in 2013, and it not only tells gives us, advises us and guides us in our park classifications, but it also allows us to identify need for park properties. And there is an identified need in the comprehensive park system master plan for a community park at the location of the Reese Hill Road Park property. And it is classified as a community park. And that designation differs from a neighborhood park in that it serves a wider area, a 3-mile radius, and as opposed to a half-mile radius for a neighborhood park. And it provides reservable facilities, for example, picnic shelters or ball fields. And it also provides support facilities for those amenities, such as restrooms and off-street parking. These facilities are determined, however, through a public engagement process when we get to the point of a park master planning process. So we allow the public to come forward and tell us what they would like to see in their park. And that would be a process that would involve not only the adjacent neighbors, but that whole service area the park serves. So the potential for a diverse array of facilities required that a community park would have required us to request a comprehensive plan change to parks and open space and the public amusement zoning. That gives us more flexibility in when we're ready to move forward in master planning and then letting the public know what amenities can be in place or implemented at that park classification. Also, the division of the park property by the extension of Lone Oak Road, along with the water pump station that's going in at the northwest corner of that site to the west of Lone Oak, resulted in a change, asking for a change in zoning for the 1.8 acres that's west of Lone Oak. So that's what we're asking to remain developing residential RA. The acreage west of Lone Oak adjacent to the pump station to the south will also be master planned because it is park property with the rest of the park. And then we will seek the input from the public on what they would like to see in all of the park property on either side of Lone Oak. I think that's all I have to say, and I'm happy to take any questions from you.
Commissioner Pollock.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Raise your hand.
I know I was trying to raise my hand. So you said, so this is different than a neighborhood park. The question I had here is that, the budget for the park has always been kind of, it's always a challenge there. So are these fees that are going to be paid, are they going to come out of the general fund, or are they going to come out of the park fund? These fees that are going to have to pay for the development of Lone Oak Road. Because that's a concern for me. Are we draining funds from other parks for this park for those fees?
Well, with regard to the park, but not Lone Oak Road, to develop and master plan a park, we do use park system development charges. That is separate from building Lone Oak Road extension. So for the park purposes only, I can speak to the builder fees, that the system development charge fees that builders pay for, all the utilities, including parks. We do utilize those system development charges for park master planning and development. And then we also seek public grants to supplement those funds.
Well, what I'm talking about is that everybody that okay, let me pull it up. There was a supplemental report, and it says here that okay, there was an original developer's condition for the approval of Devon's substation that let's see, it says here, the Lone Oaks Reimbursement District requires everybody to pay a fee, and that the city will be paying approximately $1,030 per vehicle trip to accommodate that resolution. So they'll be paying their proportional share of the improvement. I was just wondering, is that coming out of general fund? So you're going to have to, besides the development, when you development, there's going to be some fees you have to pay for the Lone Oak Road. Is that coming out of general fund?
That's separate from the park development. If Pamela can speak to that aspect.
And then also, why exactly what was the rationale for such a large park as opposed to a neighborhood park?
Well, we have several park classifications in our comprehensive park system master plan to meet a variety of needs. So a neighborhood park is typically a smaller local park that serves pedestrians, people walking or bicycling to a park. There's no off-street parking. There are no restroom facilities. It's just meant to meet the local surroundings. A community park serves a larger area, for instance, a 3-mile area. It has more facilities to allow, large family gatherings or ball teams to play, like, Gear Park, is a community park. So you have restroom facilities, you can serve a large area. And then we have our urban parks, such as Bush's Pasture Park, Wallace Marine Park, and those serve more of a region-wide. So we plan according to how we're servicing the needs of the area. The community park, the Reese Hill Park land, it's identified as a community park, and it's also identified with a neighborhood park component, which means that it will also include facilities that a neighborhood park would have. So a drop-in shelter, a playground to meet needs of the local community as well.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Pollock, when we get back to staff, you can ask Ms. Cole that question about the fee, which we'll have an opportunity in a minute. So next up, we have Commissioner Slater, followed by Commissioner Levin.
Hello, Tony. I hope you're well.
Hi, Michael. Good to see you, or almost see you.
So I had just a couple questions. We had a comment that expressed some concerns about an amusement designation. And I think the person was thinking of like a fair where you have rides or something like a Ferris wheel. And I just want to make sure that that is not one of the options that's up for consideration by the city, so we can clarify that.
No, that wouldn't be an option under that designation. I think it might have just been the confusion with the zone designation of public amusement, which I can understand that. But public amusement is defined as to implement the park's open space and outdoor recreation designation of the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan through the identification of allowed uses and the establishment of development standards. And those come through our comp plan. And the PA zone generally allows a variety of public and private parks, open space, and indoor and outdoor recreation.
Thank you. And if I could have a follow-up.
You may.
Thank you. How far away is the nearest community park in terms of mileage?
The closest parks really are Battle Creek Park, which is still undeveloped. And then Secor Park is a neighborhood park, but it's a larger neighborhood park, but it's still identified as a neighborhood park. The closest community park would be Woodmansee Park, which is probably close to about 2 miles or more away from Reese Hill Road.
And that's on the other side of Kubler.
Yes, Woodmansee Park is the only developed community park south of Mission Street.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater. Did you have another follow-up, Commissioner Slater?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Levin.
Thank you. Question about the, I have, I guess, a couple of questions that are going in different directions. So the first one that I have is, how did this location get picked? This doesn't serve a radius. It serves what would be half a pie. Because to the south is all ag land and county ag land. So what was Parks thinking when they identified this parcel?
When we updated the Comprehensive Park System Master Plan in 2013, that was a 3-year process. And part of that process was looking at the urban growth boundary, looking at the potential for growth and potential increase in population, and then looking at the needs. And there is a very high need for community park land that does allow for ball fields and higher recreation activities for families and individuals and gatherings. So what we look at available land, and we look at where we believe development is coming in. Okay, the UT10 transition, the residential development zones. And then we look where we think we have the potential to maybe acquire land. And that's where we put our little stars on our proposed park system map of where we believe we could have, these different park classifications to meet the needs. We do it to meet the needs of future growth.
Do you have a follow-up, Commissioner Levin?
Yes, and follow-up is not on the same thought process. It's going now in a different direction related to fiscal capability. I remember just within the last couple of years that we as a community were struggling to maintain the parks that we had. why should we add more parkland to our responsibility?
Well, I believe that it is important for us to have open space in our community for the potential for park property, for the enjoyment and the benefit of our residents. We have policies in the CPSMP, the Comprehensive Park System Master Plan. And some of those policies, we have policy 1.8, parks and open space shall be included, along with other city infrastructure and planning and growth management for new development. Policy 4.1, cities shall provide a system of improvements to meet the needs of the current and future population with park acreage planning goal of 7 acres per 1,000 residents. That equates to 2.25 acres of neighborhood, 2.25 acres of community, and 2.5 acres of urban park land. And we have policy 4.4, potential park sites may be acquired in advance of development when the proposed site acquisition meets a specific requirement in the CPSMP. Reesdale Road, again, is identified as a potential community park site to meet the potential growth in this area. Granted that it's outside the urban growth boundary once you get south of Reesdale Road. Well, Reesdale Road is in the urban growth or outside the urban growth boundary. But there is a wide area of development going in north of this property that it can serve in both a community and a neighborhood park capacity.
Did you have a follow-up, Commissioner Libby?
I do. There was you made a reference to amount of park per capita, I believe. How does that compare to the amount of open space per person that we have today?
Well, I can tell you. Well, I can tell you based on the plan, which is a little outdated. For community parks, this is from the 2013 plan. Okay, our current need at that time was 174 acres and future need 266 acres. And this is going out to, this is based on the population estimate for 2035. And we have a total of approximately 440 acres needed to meet population growth. That's per 1,000 residents. And that's based on a figure that's given to us from the National Parks and Recreation Association as an advisory, to shoot for.
Commissioner Levin?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions at this time for the applicant? And I don't see any hands raised. Thank you very much, Tony, for your presentation and your response to our questions.
Thank you, commissioners.
You're welcome. We don't have anybody signed up for the neighborhood association, nor do we have anybody else to sign up from the public. So we'll move back to staff questions. Commissioner Pollack, did you have a question?
Yes. Okay, so this is for Ms. Cole. Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the supplemental staff report that you sent out indicates that the Lone Oak Road Reimbursement District under Resolution 2018-08 estimated that 965 lots would contribute to the district fees of an estimated full build out of 1,480. The director's report to the council for the district projected that 50 to 75% of the bare land would be developed into lots. Am I still here? It's like something happened here.
Oh, you're here.
We still hear you.
Oh, okay. It says here that even though the park property is not being developed into single family dwellings, the city is subject to reimbursement district fees in the amount of approximately $1,030 per vehicle trip pursuant to resolution number 2018-01. So the city will be paying its proportional share of improvement. So what is the estimated trip vehicle trips times this 1,000. So how much per year? How much money is this?
That was information provided from Public Works, and I don't have specifics on that.
Uh-huh.
And the trip generation would depend on the types of facilities that are provided here.
So if we're good, well, I mean, at 1,030 per vehicle trip, I know you indicated there will be less trips than it would be for residential, but it doesn't exactly say how many there are, but that's a substantial amount. Is this going to be coming out of and this goes back to the fiscal issue that Commissioner Levine was talking about. Is this coming out of the park budget or the general budget, general accounting? So that's the first question. The other question is that couldn't we find another piece of property that wouldn't cost so much?
I think Lisa has her hand raised that will clarify.
Great.
Thanks. I don't know the answer to your question about the money, though we can provide that because the record's there's been a request that the record be held open, so we can provide more information during that time period. I do just want to say these are all really great questions, but I do want to remind the commission that you're not being asked if this is the appropriate land to purchase for a park. The city council's already made that decision. The question before the commission tonight is, should it remain zoned RA when it's annexed, or should it be rezoned to a park zone upon annexation? So the city council has already decided that this is an appropriate spot for parkland based on whatever assumptions they've made or reviewed with staff, the Parks Master Plan and other things, cost of the land, all those kinds of things have been determined already at the city council level.
Well, the reason why I say this is because it says here, would it be in the best interest of the public? And that's part of the issue of the comprehensive plan. And to me,
correct, but the RA's, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. The RA zone does allow it to be a park. So, for example, if the Planning Commission were to recommend to the council that it not be rezoned to the park zone upon annexation, that doesn't prohibit it from being a park, because every zone in the city allows a park. It's one of the uses that you can do in any zone. However, usually if we have an opportunity, we will rezone the land to parks because it provides the public with a more solid guarantee that the city is going to retain the land as park usage versus, selling it later for development. It's like once we make a commitment to the city that we're buying this land for a park, we're going to keep it as a park.
Okay. And then only, may I?
Yeah, you can have a follow-up.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Commissioner Slater.
And this is just a different one, but in my experience, when on land use chair, West Salem went through a bunch of different annexations. Does this one have to go for a vote, or is this, or does this annexation to go for a vote, or it's not going in that process?
No, state law changed a few years ago, and cities are actually prohibited from sending annexations to the voters if all of the property owners that own the property sign the request. Okay. So, the property owners have signed this request, therefore we're prohibited from sending it to the voter. So it will just be approved or denied at the city council level.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Commissioner Slater.
Thank you. And I'm not quite sure how to express my thought here, which is dangerous, but I'm going to try. I think it would have been helpful to know that the city could go ahead and put a park there regardless of whether we act or not. It always feels a little bit disingenuous to me when we're presented with a choice that turns out really not to matter. And I understand the difference between letting them go ahead versus giving them a formal designation for this space, but it would have been helpful for me to know that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Lisa, do you want to make a comment on that or to that?
Sure. I mean, I guess I thought it was clear in the staff report, although I can go and look back, that the city is making this request and the city owns the property or has a purchase agreement to purchase the property. The city council is who's authorized to purchase property on behalf of the city. And then as a property owner, we can develop it under that, any permitted use on that zone. I think we've talked before about how parks are pretty much permitted in any zone.
We have. It may have been before Commissioner Slater, though.
Yeah, potentially. So sorry if that wasn't clear. But yeah, generally the Planning Commission is not going to be asked about, I guess, citing development on behalf of the city. I know that's kind of a weird way to say it. Yeah, generally when an applicant comes forward, they want to do something and the zoning, if they're asking you to rezone it, it's so they can do that use. This one is a little different because park is permitted.
I understand that the city owns the property and that they wanted to put a park there and the city council had made that determination. I understood that, and I understand that's not the role of the Planning Commission, but the city didn't really need our action to build a park there. They could do that anyway, and I did not understand that. And so to me, that feels a bit like this action and our time here to discuss this may not have been necessary. And it would have been nice to have known that in advance. I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess I won't agree that it's not necessary. So the city is requesting that the property be rezoned upon annexation and be redesignated under the comprehensive plan. So that is a planning commission. Generally, if it's not an annexation, it's up to the planning commission to decide rezoning and redesignation. Because this is an annexation, in other words, the property is not in the city yet, the code has it set up so the planning commission reviews the request for rezoning and then makes a formal recommendation to the city council. And so it's always awkward, I think, when the city is the applicant on any project, because some of the staff that would normally come here and answer questions about the code are here instead as applicants. But it is a code requirement that the planning commission review the request for redesignation and provide a formal recommendation on the council to the council on the rezoning. It is always up to them whether or not they accept the recommendation for an annexation case. So they decide the rezoning, and then they also decide if the property should be annexed at the same time.
And I think just following up on Commissioner Slater, I think it's as you have stated before, it's just a reassurance to the community that it is going to be developed as a park at some time. It's not, we're not going to put a different use on that. And I think it's just providing assurance to the public that that land will be held in bay until it can be developed as a community park. But I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Slater. Did you have a follow-up, Commissioner Slater?
No.
Or another question?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Would the applicant, Tony, like to rebut anything that was mentioned, or are you good? You have 5 minutes if you'd like to rebut.
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Last opportunity for questions of staff. So we do have a request to leave the record open, and I'll need a motion as you guys ponder that, and a second, in which if that motion is granted, that means they have until May 25th for any new testimony, June 1st for any rebuttal, and then we can hear it the night of June 1st also, is my understanding from my secret conversations with Lisa. So
I will, sorry, before a motion is made, we will need the applicant, Tony, to just state on the record if she wants to waive the final 7 days as the applicant. So otherwise there would be 7 more days, but yes, those are the correct dates.
So would the applicant, Tony, would you like to waive that last 7-day period?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. So do I have a motion from a commissioner? Don't all talk at one time. Okay.
Madam Vice President, I have a motion that we leave the record open on public hearing 5.1.
Thank you, Commissioner McKinley. Do I have a second?
Second by Levin.
Second by Levin. Discussion on the motion. Seeing no hands raised. Shelby, would you call the vote and please signify by saying aye if you're in favor of the motion to keep the record open.
Commissioner Augustine?
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs?
Aye.
Commissioner Heller?
Aye.
Commissioner Levin?
Aye.
Commissioner McKinley?
Aye.
Commissioner Pollock?
Aye.
Commissioner Slater?
Aye.
And Kopcho and Schweikar are absent.
Thank you, Shelby. So I will open a hearing on item 5.2, which is case number CPC ZC SPR 80J21-02 for the 5191 Portland Road Northeast. Again, are there any ex parte contacts to conversations to disclose or potential or actual conflicts of interest from anybody of the commissioners? I lost my participant screen. I don't see any hands raised. Shelby, would you please read the statement of criteria for us?
This is a public hearing to consider a comprehensive plan change, zone change, Class 3 site plan review, Class 2 adjustment, case number CPC ZC SPR ADJ 21-02 for a property located at 5191 Portland Road Northeast. The criteria applicable to this application are found in the Salem Revised Code, SRC, Chapter 64.025E2 for comprehensive plan map amendments, 265.005E1 for quasi-judicial zone changes, 220.005 F3 for Class 3 site plan review, and 250.005 D2 for Class 2 adjustment. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Planning Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, on that issue. A similar failure to raise a constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Planning Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Thank you, Shelby. Mr. Panko, we're ready for you.
All right, thank you and good evening. Can you hear me and can you see
Yes.
my screen here?
Yep, yes to both.
Perfect. All right, my name is Aaron Panko with the Planning Division. Tonight's case is for a comprehensive plan change, zone change, site plan review, and Class 2 adjustment for property at 5191 Portland Road Northeast. At this time, I'd like to enter into the staff report into the record, including its attachments. And this is a vicinity map of the subject property. The property is approximately 1.85 acres in size. The property is located outside of the urban service area and has frontage along Portland Road Northeast. Portland Road is designated as a major arterial. Some other nearby streets are Kale Street Northeast, which is designated as a minor arterial. And then further to the north is Hazel Green Road. This is a comprehensive plan map for the vicinity. The property has a comprehensive plan designation as commercial in the red here. Along the Portland Road corridor, there are a variety of designations. Across the street directly is an industrial commercial designation. Further north, there's multifamily designations, commercial designation, developing residential. And then to the south, there's an industrial designation at the intersection here of Kale and Portland Road, and some single family designations. And this is a zoning map for the property. The property is currently zoned CG, general commercial. The abutting properties to the north and the south share that same general commercial designation. Further to the north is residential agriculture. And across the street in the IC zone is property that's occupied by Portland General Electric. And then to the west of the property is property zone PE. It's public and private education services that's occupied by the Shamawa Indian School. And this is an aerial photo of the property. Sometime around 2018, the site began to be occupied by a business that sells and rents shipping containers. Gravel was applied to the site and a storage area for shipping containers was established without receiving land use approvals or development permits. And this photo here was captured on Street View, showing the site roughly in its current conditions with some shipping containers and gravel. And this is another angle here looking more southward toward the property at the containers. The applicant would like to continue to operate the shipping container business at this site, but the use classification for this business as warehousing and distribution is not permitted in the current CG general commercial zone. The applicant is requesting a comprehensive map plan map amendment and zone change from general commercial to industrial commercial, a designation that allows warehousing and distribution uses as a permitted use. The applicant has provided a use comparison chart highlighting the similarities in the uses allowed under the current general commercial designation and the proposed industrial commercial designation. Both designations allow the same retail, office, motor vehicle sales and service, education, civic service, and construction contracting uses, with the proposed industrial commercial zone allowing some more options for manufacturing, wholesale sales, storage and distribution type uses. In addition, the development standards, including setbacks and landscape requirements, are very similar between the commercial designation currently and the proposed industrial commercial designation. So the proposed designation is equally suited for the subject property and would be a general benefit because it would allow for the efficient use of vacant urban land. The subject property was part of a comprehensive plan change and zone change request in the 1990s that resulted in several conditions of approval to ensure that future development of the property is compatible with the surrounding area. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission retain some of these conditions with this request, as noted in the staff report. In addition, comments were received from the Northgate Neighborhood Association indicating support for the proposal, provided that site obscuring fencing and landscaping be provided to screen the inventory storage area from Portland Road, and that the number of sample units provided in the display area that are visible from Portland Road be limited. So staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the conditions as they are in the staff report to ensure that the development of the property is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. This request includes a Class 3 site plan review application for development of a new 300 square foot sales office, an off-street parking area, a screened inventory storage area. The site plan shows access to the site will be through an existing shared driveway with the neighboring property to the south. Pedestrian access will be provided from Portland Road through the development site to the sales office. And as conditioned, pedestrian access will be provided to the abutting use to the south, which shares the driveway access with the property. The proposal complies with off-street parking and setback requirements, and the applicant has requested an adjustment with this application to reduce the amount of landscaping required for the first phase of development. The applicant is proposing to develop the property in phases with only the front portion of the site to be developed at this time. However, the landscaping standard in the IC zone requires that a minimum of 15% of the total property area be landscaped with any new development, regardless of the amount of site area that's proposed for development. The applicant is requesting the adjustment to reduce the amount of required landscaping so that it's proportional to the amount of site area proposed for development. The site plan indicates that approximately 29,000 square feet of the site will be developed with this first phase. And the applicant is proposing roughly 4,300 square feet of landscaping, which is the equivalent to 15% of the area that's proposed for development with that first phase. The request equally or better meets the intent of the landscaping requirement in the zoning code, and any future development of the property in phase 2 or otherwise would be required to provide the full amount of landscaping consistent with the minimum requirements of the IC zone. So we did receive a letter of support from the Northgate Neighborhood Association for this request, subject to their request for additional screening along Portland Road. No other public comments were received, and staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the request subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Questions of staff? Commissioner Slater.
Hi, Aaron. I had 2 questions. So they're asking for a zone change, What would be the difference between a zone change versus giving them an exception to do this work in the current zone?
So in order for the use to be allowed on the property, the use would have to be permitted in the zone. So the general commercial zone has a list of permitted uses, special uses, conditional uses, and prohibited uses. There's not a mechanism in the code for allowing a use that's not permitted there. The way forward would be with the zone change.
So we do not have the authority to do that because it's not contemplated in the code.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Then, and my concern was more about if this facility then sold to a new owner and they changed the activity to something that wasn't as compatible with the neighborhood. That was my concern. Then the second question is, they've asked for changes in landscape requirement. That seems very rational to me, given what they're doing. Is there a way that if we grant this, we can be assured that the ultimate outcome of 50% landscape does occur?
I believe one of the conditions associated with the adjustment is that the adjustment that you're approving only applies to this request. So any future development of the property would have to meet the minimum amount in the code. So when additional applications are received for phase 2 or anything else on the property, we'll be looking at that 15% standard, and it will apply to the site, the entire site.
Okay, so there's no way in which the ultimate site will have less than 15%.
It would take another adjustment application if we were to consider anything other than the 15% standard in the zone.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater. Commissioner Levin, followed by Commissioner Heller.
Thank you. Mr. Panko, on the, I guess the first question about zone changes and continuing, there's a better way to describe this. I'm butchering my words, but not creating an island zone. So we have the street that separates, and historically that has not been viewed as a touching of zones. It would have to be what's on the west side of Portland Road, north or to the west of the subject property. So does planning have any heartburn over the fact that we're creating a little bit of an island here?
It's a good question. And, I think we always like things to be neat and orderly, and having a little island of industrial commercial in this case does make things a little bit awkward on the map. But I think the request here kind of stands on its own. The applicant, we believe, has demonstrated that they meet the approval criteria for changing the zone in this case. I think there's a lot of similarities between the general commercial and industrial commercial. And that wouldn't preclude, the neighboring property from submitting a similar request, requesting to go to another zone that would be compatible with the area.
Okay, and then my other question is about the use. How did they get classed as a storage use? This seems more like a sales yard, almost like auto sales would be, which I think is allowed in the CG zone.
This is a tough one for sure, and the applicant will probably mention some things about their use too. So we did struggle a little bit with how to classify this. This business certainly does have a retail component to it. It does have a storage component to it. And there's, I believe, some personal storage activities also that would occur as part of the business here. So we actually went through a similar use determination process because we were having troubles classifying this. So we evaluated the characteristics of this use compared to the uses that we have in the zoning code. And we arrived at the wholesale, the warehousing and distribution category as really the most appropriate, given the small amount of retail area and the primary activity really being the storage of these units. That was something that the planning administrator determined. It was appealed to the hearings officer, and the hearings officer concurred on that designation also. So it definitely is a use that doesn't fit the typical mold of a retail sales use.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. Commissioner Heller.
Oh, thank you. Would you please educate me? Why was the zone change triggered in the first place? I mean, weren't they grandfathered in for that use? I mean, I don't understand this.
So the use was established sometime in about 2018. So just a few years ago.
Okay.
The property was zoned general commercial at that time. So an applicant doesn't get non-conforming rights for establishing a use that wasn't permitted in the zone. So those rights are usually obtained when changes occurred to the zoning code that would make an existing conforming use non-conforming with the current code. So we're dealing with the use that was established without going through the correct approval process here.
So they could have, just to follow up, so they could have continued with that use, the non-conforming use, or
They don't have non-conforming rights to this, and we've been working with the applicant to try to get the site into conformance with the zoning code, and this is the option or the path moving forward in order to make the business a legal use for the site.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Heller. Any other questions of staff at this time? So we'll move on to the applicant. I've got two names, Margaret Gandervo and Ross Black. I'm not sure who would like to present first, but in either case, a total of 15 minutes. And if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Margaret Gandervo. I am here as representative for the applicant. My address for notice purposes is 250 Church Street, Southeast in Salem, Oregon, 97301. We would like to thank staff for their efforts in preparation of the staff report. As you can see from the record, this has been quite a process, and we appreciate them hanging in there with us. We would like to kind of give you an overall context for why we're requesting this fairly complex application for what I think you have noted is a use that seems pretty similar to uses that would normally be allowed in the existing zone. What applicant's business is using storage containers and shipping containers and converting them into uses for on-site storage and also office space that are kind of moved from the existing site onto just different areas, sites around the community, as well as some sales of those individual units. And because this is kind of a unique use in the area, it is something that wasn't originally contemplated by the code. We went back and forth through the similar use process to kind of give a concrete designation to this use. And for various reasons, the city has decided that this is more of an industrial use than a commercial use. And kind of the nice thing about the IC zone is that it allows for a little bit more flexibility in these areas. We're looking at converting to a zone that looks a lot like the general commercial zone. A lot of the retail uses, a lot of the sales uses, a lot of the office uses will be retained, so that in the long term, any development shifts in this area can be addressed, and this site can be repurposed within the IC zone, even though it looks on the map like it is kind of a spot zone. So in moving forward, we want you to kind of have that context in your mind that these two zones are largely overlapping, and given the existing development in this area, we feel like the proposed use is a good fit for the existing area in kind of the current development pattern. And we hope that this new zone will also allow us to retain that flexibility, so that if the area does develop into more of a traditional commercial area, any use that would be allowed in that zone would also remain permitted in the proposed zone. Ross Black is the applicant, and he's going to give kind of a quick presentation regarding what his proposed use is, what the proposed use kind of looks like when it's fully developed, and we'll both be here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Mr. Black, a name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Ross Black, and my address is 860 Sunrise Drive, Linden, Washington, 98264. I'm actually in a tiny little village called Camalú, Mexico right now. My sister-in-law works with an orphan prevention ministry here, and so we got here just about 2 hours ago, and I was just I was just praying that our internet signal would hold. So it's holding so far as I can tell, and if we can get through like the next 15 minutes, it'll be wonderful. So if you're okay, I'll just pull some slides or some just a simple little slide deck here just to share about what our business is and get into probably some of the biggest concerns that we've had discussion with the neighborhood association about. You see this okay? There's a picture of my dad and I there. Great. Yeah. Okay. So I started the business in 1997, actually as a senior in high school. I was not a very good student, and my parents basically just dragged me through through school. So my dad likes to joke that 20 some years later, he's still trying to help me finish my senior class project. But over the last few years, we definitely have started to get it figured out. I'd say, as a company, I feel we provide a really good service to the community, helping people move and store their things, and a lot of construction projects that happen. Often a simple box ends up being the first thing that shows up on a job site, and sometimes the last thing to leave. So it's just that it provides a pretty helpful temporary space to meet and store their things at. And we were noted as the Small Business Administration's Small Business of the Year for 2019. So we're starting to act our age, I guess, now 20 some years into it. The kind of three main components of our business is residential, rather than like U-Haul is probably one of the biggest names in moving, and rather than just cramming your move into one hectic day, by delivering a box, or like a U-Haul has a U-Box, or Pods has a pod, by delivering a box to someone's first location, they can kind of slowly pack and move their things and take a couple of days or a week or more. And then we can come and pick up their loaded box and move it to their new place. Similar thing happens with construction, where a contractor doesn't necessarily have to empty all their tools out of the storage. We can move it loaded from one job site to the next. So it's just a little more efficient storage space for them. As a company, part of our mission is to make a difference, and so we locally try to serve and use boxes and use our profits in a way that that can make a difference to the local food bank and United Way after the fires and things like that. Globally, our orphan care is just in my heart. I mean, I wish I could quit my job and just focus on orphan care and orphan prevention. And so as a company, for every one of our team members, we have, we sponsor one orphan or widow. And it's just something that is kind of makes going into work each day a little more meaningful than just caring for our own needs. So the most popular product that we have is a 20-foot simple box. And we do have some that are 40 feet and some that are smaller, about 10 feet in size. By 80%, actually even more than that now, is in the 20-foot simple box. The proposed layout was shared earlier. Most of what we do is not necessarily at our location. It's moving things from one place to another. Maybe a little more like a propane tank or yeah, like a trailer rental or something like that. It's mostly what's happening away from our site that is what's most meaningful to our customers. And so that's the use was just a really small display area, and then the rest just staging, ready to go out for delivery. The last section here is just the overall kind of look and feel of the property. The screening to include both fencing and landscaping, not just to meet the landscape requirements, but to help with some screening as well. And then definitely would implement slats or mesh. Ideally, like natural landscape would be the kind of preference, I think, for both our use and for the neighborhood association. And then again, we don't have a huge need for activity happening at our site, so not necessarily a need for a big office. Generally, just a small space for someone to work from. You know, 1 to 2 team members working from the office, but really more what they're doing is being out for delivery and staging boxes to get ready for a delivery truck coming or going. And at most of our other Simple Box locations, we generally have 2 to 3 employees show up for work each day, and generally 5 to 10 customers per day. And we operate normal business hours. Our whole team meets for a morning meeting at 7:30 every morning, and then by 8 o'clock we're open, and by about 4:30 we're done. So that's just a general overview of our company. And again, I just appreciate your time. For me, everything that I didn't go to college. I started a business. I thought, I'll have it made if I start a business. Looking back, probably been wonderful to have actually got an education. And in this case, I still feel like 20 some years later, I'm still being educated quite a bit. So it's a pretty cool thing to get to see this side of the process and learn from each of you. So.
Thank you, Ross. And Margaret, did you have anything else to add? Because you've got a few more minutes if you wanted to make any comments.
So kind of to sum up Ross's presentation, you can kind of see that the proposed development is going to look from the street largely like a small office with that display area and then a screened inventory area behind it. So the visual impact in the area is fairly limited. There will be kind of landscape screening in accordance with the general development code provisions, and there will be quite a bit of on-site improvements and right-of-way improvements as part of this overall application. So what we're looking at the end of this proposal is that section will be improved. There will be sidewalks, landscaping. It's going to look like more of a commercial use than it currently looks, as more of kind of a gravel storage area. So there's quite a bit of development, although there's not much building happening.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. Do we have questions? I see Commissioner Slater has his hand raised.
Thank you. I have two quick questions, and I'll direct it to whomever can answer it, I guess. I got the impression that that members of the public could go in and store materials in one of the boxes on the site. But the presentation leads me to believe that the boxes are essentially empty and they're stored there as inventory. Can you help me understand that?
That's correct. And in the similar use determination phase, that was a concern, that there was access to the inventory area by the public. It's not a storage use in the sense that people go on the site to access storage. There are a few clients who move their kind of packed storage box to the inventory area. It stays packed and then is moved then again to a third site. It happens mostly with construction companies. So there is some incidental storage. It's fairly rare, and there's no access to that storage while it's on site.
Understood. Okay, thank you. And then my second question was, is there any modification of the boxes that take place while they're on site, such as, welding or other activities that would restructure the box or add components to the box?
No, there are some kind of modified boxes, but those are all of that improvement and modification to the box itself is done at a different location, I think in Washington. Is that right?
Gotcha.
Correct. Yeah. Up in Burlington, Washington.
Those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater. Do I have
Thank
any
you.
other hands raised for questions of the applicant? And Ross, I see that your dad is on, so I'm sure he's very proud of you.
He's amazing. I wish every person had a dad like him and just a cheerleader in life.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing to joke about, but honestly, if I was like a drug dealer, I think he would be saying, "You're really good at this, son." Like I think whatever it is, he's just like got my back. He's just super supportive. So yeah,
good for him.
yeah,
Well, we
it's pretty
appreciate
awesome.
that. I don't have anybody signed up from the neighborhood association, nor do I have any other individuals signed up to testify. So this is our next opportunity to ask questions of staff. And I'm not seeing any, not wanting to rush the hands. So since there was no additional information, there wouldn't be a rebuttal by the applicant. And I will close the hearing and look to Commissioner McKinley for a motion.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the staff report on item 5.2.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
And that's
Slater.
Commissioner Slater. Is our second. Discussion on the motion. I think this is just a visual improvement for that area. So I think it's great what they're doing. I love the concept of the business, although that has nothing to do with our decision tonight. But any other comments in the discussion of the motion on the floor? Shelby, would you please call the roll, signify by saying aye if you're in favor and nay if you're opposed.
Commissioner Augustine,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs,
Aye.
Commissioner Heller,
Aye.
Commissioner Levin,
Aye.
Commissioner McKinley,
Aye.
Commissioner Pollock,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater,
Aye.
and Commissioners Kopcho and Schweikart are absent.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Margaret. We'll move on to special orders of business. We don't have any, and we have no information reports. Again, I don't have anybody signed up for public comment. And Lisa, it's your turn for the planning administrator's report.
Great, thanks. I just have a few announcements. Well, reminder, June 1st, we're going to have our work session on the House Bill 2001. That's the missing middle housing code sections. And we've sent notice of that to all the neighborhood associations and the various builders, developers, groups that are interested in this project. And the draft code provisions will be available a week before the work session. We'll send those out to the public, and we'll have it scheduled so that you guys can take public testimony that night as well as part of the work session. Last night, the City Council did have that work session on various aspects of the homeless situation, and Bryce presented some draft code concepts that I sent a link to. And if any of you watched it, the council did discuss them and give us some good feedback on some tweaks that they thought we should look into with those draft concepts. No timelines were given, so just working with the city manager, I'll find out more about when the council is expecting those, and it'll be my intent to try to bring them through the Planning Commission first through the normal process. But as I mentioned in my email, there might be a push from the council to move faster, and if so, then they might bypass the Planning Commission. So I'll keep you posted on that. Tomorrow, our Salem policy meeting is actually going to go over the zoning map. So we've been meeting every week for the public, Wednesday at noon and 5:30 to go over the draft policies. This meeting this week is to go over the zoning map. So we have that interactive map online, generating lots of buzz in the community and lots of comments. If you've looked at it recently, you can see comments people have been dropping on the map. And so Eunice and other staff are going to host a meeting to kind of present why certain properties were picked to be rezoned, and then answer questions and receive feedback on that. So tune in if you want an exciting meeting. Then the next zoning subcommittee meeting will be May 27th at noon for those of you that are on the subcommittee or anybody else that wants to watch. And then I sent out an invite earlier today for a DLCD community event that they're holding for the climate change and equity rulemaking efforts that are ongoing. I think I've mentioned those before, that I'm on the committee for that. And I feel like we're barely into it, although it's supposed to wrap up at the end of the year. And so we don't have any sort of draft land use and transportation provisions yet that have come out of that. Mostly they've been focusing on equity in decision making at this point, but it is a community meeting. So hopefully if you guys are interested, you will attend, and there was a link. You just have to sign up with your email and then they'll give you the Zoom link if you want to attend that meeting. That's all I have.
Any questions of Lisa? I don't. Oh, Commissioner Slater.
Of course.
Oh, almost got off the hook.
I know. I debated too, but
Yeah.
so Lisa never returns my phone calls, so this is my only opportunity.
What? That's not true.
I'm kidding. Lisa's great. So Lisa, two questions for you. When we have our work session on the proposed code changes, what are you expecting from the Planning Commission members? I know there won't be a staff report that we're supposed to adopt, but what are you looking from us to provide you?
Yeah, so generally when we have large code amendment packages, we bring them through and we think it's good to have more of an informal work session where we present. It's not like the draft code language, it's more the concepts, like these uses would be permitted in these zones. Here would generally be the setbacks or that kind of stuff. And so Bryce will go through a pretty detailed kind of overview, and then you can ask questions, clarification of what we're talking about, and then just provide feedback if you think we've, missed the mark, or, hey, what about this? You oftentimes bring up things we didn't think about, or think we're not being permissive enough, or we're being too permissive, or what have you, and give us really good feedback. And then because we open it to the public, members of the public will listen if they're interested, and then oftentimes provide testimony at the end of the discussion, which will also help staff to get more input from the public and the commission to hear what people are thinking or concerned about. And then we go back and tinker with it, take that feedback and then turn it into the formal code language and then come through the public hearing process. And so it could still be changed, obviously, during the public hearings. But it's a good first draft because we've in the past definitely got some really good feedback. I'm thinking of the last time we came through a big package where we introduced the idea that folks would need to contact the neighborhood association ahead of time, and in some cases have an open house. I remember we had really good discussion during the work sessions about how that could look, and well, what does it mean, and who's going to provide them the information to contact the neighborhood association, and what if the website's wrong? What does it mean? So we were able to kind of talk through that and then craft the code language to address some of those concerns up front, instead of those being raised for the first time during the hearing and then having to try to do it during the hearing. So yeah, it's just a conversation, and for you guys to let us know if we're on the right track or missing anything, or if you love it, you can always say that too.
Any other questions, Commissioner Slater?
I have one other question.
Sure.
As we go through the zoning map exercise and public conversation, one of the things that I had hoped that could happen through this is identifying spaces that we need to preserve for the future, whether that's green spaces, whether that's culturally significant spaces or historical spaces. Is there a way to do that through the current process? Do we need to add something so that we can capture that input, or is there not an interest in doing that?
Well, I'm trying to think. I mean, through the zoning map, we're actually picking properties to rezone, right? Without the property owner requesting it, and sometimes maybe objecting. We're saying this property, at the end of this project, the city council is going to rezone it, to mixed use or to multifamily, or to some of it is parks land to parks, because like I said, some of our parks are in single family zone land, etc. So I'm trying to think, generally, we're not going to go in and rezone somebody's property to like a park zone if the city has no intention of purchasing it, because we've basically eliminated their ability to do any development on their property through zoning, but without compensating them for that. So I'm not sure through the zoning map part of the project, there's a way to do that. Now, I know we have policies that we've written about identifying space, and I know we're going to, our plan is to update the Parks Master Plan as soon as our Salem's adopted. That would be the next step, do the transportation plan and the Parks Master Plan. So those would get more into detail, for example, about transportation projects and then parkland we should be buying, and is this the right metric for determining if we have parks? Is this the right type of parks? And Commissioner Slater, we've talked about pocket parks, not currently in our Parks Master Plan, but we want to put that in as a type of park, so then we can start identifying land to buy that would fit that need. So I'm not sure through the zoning map that would be a way to do it. Kind of a rambling answer to say no. Sorry.
Do you have a follow-up, Commissioner Slater?
No, that was a pretty straightforward answer. No,
Yep.
I understood it.
I did too. It's amazing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for Lisa? And I'm not seeing any hands raised. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Commissioner comments for the good of the order? No good comments. Okay. This meeting is adjourned and we'll see you June 1st. Take care, guys.